Welcome Home, a podcast for veterans about veterans by veterans, is a project of Willing Warriors and the Warrior Retreat at Bull Run.
Good morning. I'm your host, Larry Zilliox, Director of Culinary Services here at the Warrior Retreat at Bull Run. This week, our guest is Kimberly Jewell Pond. She's the Operational Support Coordinator and Lead Coordinator for the Washington, D.C. chapter of Irreverent Warriors. And if you don't know about this organization, it is really a great, very simple philosophy, but really great organization. They work to eliminate veteran suicide and eliminate the isolation that veterans feel. And they do that by getting veterans to go out to events. I think what veterans find is that this group becomes their tribe again, which they often miss dearly. But Kimberly, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Tell us a little bit about your prior service, Air National Guard, Alaska for 17 years. Tell us a little bit about your service and what it's like flying around Alaska.
So my service, 17 years in the Alaska Air National Guard. I was one of the lucky that got to be full-time guard for 17 years. So that, it's essentially like active duty, but you don't have to move. I started out originally in logistics and then moved over to being an HH-60 crew chief for the combat rescue unit up in Alaska. It was a lot of fun. It was challenging, but it was a lot of fun, especially because I did the opportunity to fly around a little bit and travel. We deployed with active duty. We had a stateside mission when we weren't deployed. So it just kept us hopping and on our toes.
Yes, and you're talking about working in what can be formidable, austere environment.
Mm-hmm.
Had you ever thought about or wished you'd maybe gone with another guard unit somewhere or gone active duty and gotten to a warmer climate?
No, because I was born and raised in Alaska, which was part of why I joined the Guard, is because I'm very partial to Alaska. It's a very beautiful country. I wanted to serve my country without having to necessarily leave home unless, obviously it was a deployment or going for training and everything, because we did train with active duty.
Mm-hmm.
And I did get to do a fair amount of travel as well.
You got out after 17 years. What was the transition like for you?
It was a tough transition, going from the military side to the civilian side a lot, because nobody prepares you for what it's going to be like. Because, when you go from a military lifestyle where the people that you work with, they become your very close friends and family, you develop those bonds because you guys go through so much together, where it's deployments, it's, families being created, and just everything. You train together, you play together, it becomes your family. And it's that way because when you deploy, you have to know and trust that everybody's got your back. When you transition out of the military, being in like corporate society, it's not like that. You will make friends and you may bond with people, but it's not the same bond. And a lot of it is because they just don't understand the lifestyle that you're coming from, but it's also not the lifestyle on the other side of the fence.
That's for sure.
So that's what makes it difficult.
How did you come across, how did you come from Alaska to come down here to the DMV?
Once I got out, my daughter's dad was actually stationed at the Pentagon. So that's what brought me down here. And then because we co-parent, I decided to stay.
You got down here. How did you get involved with the Irreverent Warriors?
So it took me a few years before I found Irreverent Warriors. I think it was 2019, I had one of my friends that I play softball with. She's a Marine. She called me one day just out of the blue and she said, "Hey, I'm going to do this. It's a Halloween hike down in Richmond. You want to go with me? I was like, sure, I will go. Didn't know what I was getting into. She didn't tell me what organization or what it was about. She just said it was a Halloween hike. And since Halloween's my holiday, I was for it. We collaborated on, dressing up. She says, well, I'm going patriotic. So I dressed up as Superwoman and, you know, showed up, found out about Irreverent Warriors organization, realized I was amidst probably more veterans than I had ever been around since I've been out of the military.
Mm.
And we hiked through Richmond, and it was just amazing. It was like being with family again that I hadn't been with in quite a few years. So that's how I got introduced. And then I started looking for different activities within um, IW. Of course, COVID hit. So that kind of mitigated some of our activities. But then when we started coming out of COVID, we started having our hikes again. So I started doing my hikes I did one in Harper's Ferry, did one in DC. And then at that point, I wanted to work with the organization. I wanted to volunteer my time because I knew what it was doing for me. It pulled me out of isolation because I had been in isolation myself because I couldn't find the same group or the same type of people that I had always known in the military. I just couldn't connect with other people in that manner. And it was something that I really desired. And I saw what it was doing for other people. So I decided I wanted to become part of the organization. So I joined as a volunteer on the hike team for DC, which then rolled into me running the DC community and then also working on a national level.
Well,
So here I am today.
yeah, what I love about that story is it's so veteran centric in the sense that your friend calls and says, "Hey, I'm going to do a hike. You want to come?" And there's no questions asked. It's just, yeah, okay, I'll come. Whereas a lot of people who never served don't trust their friends and people that they work with that much, would be asking a million questions. So I do love that story. That's so typical of veterans. Yeah, I'm in. Okay, sure. Let's do it. So, listeners, I want to direct your attention to the web page, and it is irreverentwarriors.org. There's a ton of information on here. You can hit all their social media. Our listeners are used to veteran service organizations having a big red button up in the right corner for donate, but with this organization, it's sort of in the middle. You can't miss it. It says donate, so please bang on that button and give what you can. The events that you guys sponsor, they're these these hikes.
Mhm.
And is it all year round, or is it mostly in the summer, or what are we looking at?
So we try to space out because there's multiple cities that hold these hikes. This year we're scheduled to have 60 different hikes. We try to spread them out throughout the year. So we had one up in St. Louis in January. February we had Puerto Rico and Florida. March we're starting to really ramp up to where I think there's a hike coming up this first weekend of March. There's 3 hikes on the 28th of March, depending on where at in the country you are. One of them's actually DC. It's our night hike. So it really just depends on where you're at. Every city, with the exception of DC, holds one Silkies hike, and that is our flagship program that we do. DC holds 2. So we do a night hike, which is the one in March. And then we do one during the day, which we have scheduled for later this year in November. Aside from the flagship hikes, depending on the city and the community where you're at, we host other events to bring you out into the community. We have some communities where they have more access to equine therapy, so they'll go out to, ride horses. Here in DC, we have a more community service-based community. And so we volunteer with other VSOs to do wall cleanings in DC, like cleaning the Vietnam Memorial, the Korean War Memorial. We partner with a couple other places. We partner with the VFW. They're one of our biggest sponsors to do events with the VFW. And we try to keep stuff going year round, whether it's like raft trips, community service opportunities. Sometimes we just throw out there on our Facebook page, hey, a group of us are getting together here. Let's meet up. And you'd be surprised at who comes out of the woodwork.
Yeah. So when I go to the web page and I'm looking at the events and I know a hike is coming up and I want to participate, do I have to register or do I just show up or how does it work?
So you can register ahead of time. When you go to the website, there's a link so you can go and you can find which city that you want to go to their hike page and register there. If you just show up, we're going to ask you to register on site. That way you're covered by our insurance, and we get an accurate head count. Registration is really important for us to be able to plan our hikes because we provide hydration and snacks and lunch or dinner, depending on when your hike is and everything. So it really helps us be able to plan these events out for everyone.
Skill level. Is it how long are these hikes? So, I'm kind of thinking I'm an older guy. I'm not up for a 40-mile walk. What am I looking at when I think, oh, I want to go down and I want to, join this one in Richmond or what are we looking at?
So any of the hike distances, they range either from 5 miles to 13 miles, depending on the city and the route. But it's not like, okay, we're going to be like really hoofing it. We keep the pace at like a 2.3 to 2.5 mile per hour, so that we can have people that are older or disabled can actually keep up with the element. We like to keep everybody together. So it's more of a leisurely walk.
I'm up for that. I like the sound
Yep.
of that. That's basically describes my day. So, well, I'm looking at some of the information on the webpage, and there's a couple of things that jumped out at me, and I really was very curious and was hoping you could talk a little bit more about them. But the whole concept is let's get veterans out. Let's get them out and together and doing something in the community, whether it's walking, whether it's doing volunteer work like for another VSO or something like that, but they're out. They're not isolating, which we know is a precursor in almost every case to a suicide. But so I was looking at some of the statistics, which are really awesome. 57% of veterans reported their suicidal ideations fully stopped or were significantly improved after attending an IW event. Is it just the camaraderie and the event itself that results in that kind of 57% reported reduction, or is there some sort of program that's going along with this where somebody is talking to veterans about veteran suicide, or what accounts for that?
For us, it is actually just the events and getting out and having that camaraderie. I know all of the hikes that I've been to and the ones that I host, we have first time hikers that we really bring into the fold. And, we let people know, hey, if you're walking next to somebody, talk, like introduce yourself. And, it really becomes a family to where people are exchanging social media, exchanging phone numbers, emails, whatever it is. And people are naturally afterwards, hey, I had a great time. Let's meet up for coffee somewhere. They're building those connections that they had while they were in the military. I know for me, I get multiple numbers and a lot of people do this too. And I have a network of people that I reach out to periodically if I haven't heard from them and said, hey, how's it going? You want to get together and do something. So it becomes like a buddy system of everybody checking in on everybody, which at the end of the day is going to prevent veteran suicide because you are feeling included in something and that people actually do care about you and your well-being.
Well, yeah, I just think it's amazing program, and one of the things that I think is just extraordinary is that it's so simple. It's
Mhm.
it's not something that, has to be funded with thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars just to put one event on. It's just a very basic premise that really works. And
Mhm.
I commend you all for that because, there's a lot of VSOs out there that struggle because they're trying to deliver services that veterans don't need or want. They're trying to deliver, high cost services and things that they're not thinking it through. And you guys have a great program and a great premise, and the results are astounding. I saw this one statistic here that, women veterans make up currently about 11.3% of veterans, and 40% of your participants are female, which is crazy.
Yes.
How has that happened?
That's been happening because we've created a safe place for females to, be hiking. We do have quite a few females that have, dealt with MSTs that haven't felt included in the military community, but then they come to one of our events and they feel included and they feel safe. When we say that I've got your back, we really do mean it, and it becomes a safe environment. And as more of us women go out and say, hey, you really need to come to this, and they see that it's a safe place, we're getting more and more of them coming out because we want to build our tribe too. It isn't all about the guys. We want to be able to have our tribe as well, and we can connect better with other female veterans because they've been through some of the same things, or very similar.
So is there Wow. You have a tremendous audience there with that percentage of women veterans. Is there any program or anything, any way you can work towards convincing them to register with the VA to make claims and get the benefits that they're entitled to? Because 65% of women veterans don't register. They don't seek out their benefits that they're entitled to, which is a tragedy. Also, we see a lot of women veterans that don't really identify. They don't identify as veterans in the sense that, they're not wearing the ball caps. They don't have the jackets
Mhm.
on with all that kind of stuff. So they just blend into the community. And even when they're out at functions and people, barely believe that they're a veteran or even consider them that they might be a veteran. It's just ridiculous. But do you have any sense of how VSOs such as yours or ours or any of them could work on getting more women veterans into the VA system?
Well, one of the things that we do to help encourage that is all of my events, and the majority of all the events that I've been to, we have the vet center that comes out,
Mm,
they have their mobile vet unit,
yeah.
or they'll set up a table and they will talk to everybody, get their name, their information, and contact them outside of the hike. And the vet center's free. They will help them with their claims and talk them through what their benefits are and everything else, all for free. And connect them with someone that can help with that, because honestly, as a female veteran who's applied for benefits, it's pretty daunting. And
It's
I
just,
know when I started, I didn't feel like it was taken seriously, but there are, we do work closely with the vet center to be able to help with that.
hmm Well, there is with the new Fredericksburg CBOC, there is a whole group down there just for women veterans, which is a step in the right
Mhm.
direction for sure. Um,
Yes.
when you think about the organization and how successful the events are, is is there something is there something that you're not doing that you would like to see the organization do in the future?
So what we are trying to do, and I think we're doing a pretty good job at it, but we would like to see more is we're trying to start integrate different healing modalities and different resources for that, like cold plunging, or, like I said, some chapters are able to do equine therapy. There's been a couple places where that I've looked into that, we can do like cooking, because some people just absolutely love to cook, and that is something that brings them peace. So we're starting to introduce different healing modalities. We're starting to put together more retreats. So we have Operation Firewatch, which is our all male retreat. We have Operation Phoenix, which is our all female retreat. We also have another retreat that's co-ed and partnered with Grunt Style Foundation. We do their retreat as well. And what we try to do is make sure that we can offer those up to our communities, as well as find different places within the community where they can go do cold plunge, they can go ride a horse, they can just do whatever, go hiking, just giving them different modalities that they can reach out to versus reaching to drugs and alcohol and whatnot. And that's, really what we're trying to do more of. And I would like, as a whole, we want more of our communities to be leaning more towards that.
Well, it sounds amazing. Listeners, again, the webpage is irreverentwarriors.org. I want you to check it out. Share the link. Check out the social media. Friend them on Facebook. Follow them on Instagram. Donate. Hit that donate button and give what you can. It's an amazing organization. They do phenomenal work. Join. Go to one of these events. They're all over the country. You'll see a map on the webpage. It'll show you where they all are. And they're all over. There's one, I'm not going to say it's near you, but you could get to one, believe me. Well, Kimberly, I can't thank you enough for coming on and telling us all about the organization. Appreciate it.
I appreciate you having me on.
Well, listeners, we'll have another episode next Monday morning at 0500. If you have any questions or suggestions, you can reach us at podcast@willingwarriors.org. You can find us on all the major podcast platforms. We're on YouTube and Wreaths Across America Radio. So until then, thanks for listening.
The Welcome Home podcast is brought to you by Willing Warriors, a nonprofit organization serving active duty service members and veterans since 2012. To learn more, please visit our webpage at willingwarriors.org.